So talk about that process that differentiates the normal, let's say, beet root kind of, supplement from what you're producing and what you found to be the real way to boost NO.
Well, again, in order to develop product technology, you have to understand how the human body makes nitric oxide. And without an experience and expertise in research and development and understanding cellular biology, biochemistry, and enzymology, then how can you even think about developing a product? And that's the problem with all these companies out there. They have no science, they have no scientists, they've got these talking heads who they pay. And so what we've tried to do is, number one, we understand the science. What leads to a natural loss of nitric oxide production? So our philosophy has always been, if your body can't make nitric oxide, then we got to do it for you, right? It's like if your body can't make testosterone, what do? We give you testosterone. Same in women. If you're postmenopausal women, you don't make estrogen, you don't give you DHEA or pregnenolone or these precursors and hope your body can make it. No, we give you the molecule. And that's what we do through our technology. We produce nitric oxide gas. We do it through an orally disintegrating tablet. We do it through a fermented beet powder where we actually remove the oxalates. So when you take our products, we produce nitric oxide gas. And we can demonstrate this through a gas phase ozone-based chemiluminescent analyzer. And we demonstrate our products produce NO gas. But more importantly, I think, is that we understand the enzymology. How do we restore the function of the enzyme? And then how do we restore the oral microbiome? And we do this through an orally disintegrating tablet that releases nitric oxide gas, changes the microbiome, restores the function of the enzyme. And we have clinical data to demonstrate this. Within 20 minutes of taking the lozenge, we see a 20% improvement in the enzyme's ability to produce nitric oxide, 20% improvement in endothelial function. We're changing the microbiome. We're dilating blood vessels. We're improving mitochondrial biogenesis. We're improving the number of circulating stem cells. And we're activating the telomerase enzyme, preventing the telomeres from getting shorter, improving longevity, health. And so those are the metrics that we live by. And those are the objective measurements that we put forth in clinical trials to demonstrate. And no other company out there does that, because you would never put a beet product that they're selling through a clinical trial, right? What these companies do is they take, okay, let's take this ingredient. This ingredient has been shown, given this ingredient alone, can stimulate nitric oxide production in animals or in healthy individuals. And then they put that ingredient in a matrix and they say, oh, this has been clinically proven. No, that product hasn't been clinically proven. And that's the deception that these companies do and perform to deceive their customers, thinking that this product is actually going to help them. Because you can give activators or stimulators till the cows come home, but if that enzyme isn't coupled and functional, you're never going to lead to any nitric oxide being produced. And so this is the wild, wild west in supplements, because all these companies, other companies can say the exact same thing that I say, but yet they don't have the science to prove it, to demonstrate it. So that's my goal every day when I wake up, is how do I differentiate what I do from all these other yahoos out there who are, selling their customers a bill of goods with products that can't work. And that's why these conversations are so important, because it really allows us to differentiate and look for good science, look for somebody who's published in the nitric oxide field and, understands the science so that they can develop rational product technology.
An interesting thing about the science is that it's not showing any direct correlation, I would say one-to-one of benefits, meaning that only nitric oxide is good for cardiovascular health, or only is it, this is a valuable molecule that could work how it's needed within the body in a sense and help in a number of ways. And one of the things I found very interesting to move away from cardiovascular wellness, even longevity, is neurological. And you wrote the future of Alzheimer's drug therapy is nitric oxide. Can you go into why you wrote that and what you're seeing in the research that made you write that?
Well, it goes back to 2011, and we published a very seminal paper showing that nitric oxide is required for insulin signaling and glucose uptake. So what we're finding in our interpretation from that study was that insulin resistance is a symptom of nitric oxide deficiency. So now how do we bring that into Alzheimer's? And what I've been looking at for the past 20 years is, what's the root cause of Alzheimer's? And it's a vascular disease. We've known that for the past 20 years, because if you look at SPECT scans or functional MRIs, there's always reduced blood flow to the brain. And this is the work of Daniel Amen and others. And so if you can't get oxygen and nutrients to parts of the brain, then those cells can't do their job. You get misfolding of proteins, and that shows up as tau tangles and amyloid plaque. So that's the vascular component of Alzheimer's. And then you've probably heard Alzheimer's be termed diabetes type 3 because it's insulin resistance in the brain. The cells, the neurons, don't get glucose because they become insulin resistant. And then based on our 2011 paper, now that nitric oxide can potentiate insulin signaling, overcome insulin resistance, get glucose into the cell. Now, what does nitric oxide do? It dilates the blood vessels, perfuse the brain, overcomes insulin resistance, gets glucose into the cell. The cells do their job. You don't get misfolding of proteins, and you don't get any amyloid plaque or tau tangles. So nitric oxide addresses the root cause etiology of what we call mild cognitive impairment, vascular dementia, and Alzheimer's. And so, that's why we're developing a drug therapy for this, because I'm absolutely convinced that it'll eradicate, prevent, treat, cure, and reverse Alzheimer's. Because, again, mechanistically, we understand what causes Alzheimer's. And if you look at the billions of dollars that's been spent on monoclonal antibody drug therapy against the tau tangles and the amyloid plaque, billions of dollars wasted. There's been no effective drug for that. And the reason for that is that the tau tangles and the amyloid are consequences of the disease. So developing drug therapy against a consequence of disease will not work, it cannot work, and it doesn't work. And so, that's been a major, waste of time, money, and energy by these companies, when let's focus on mechanism. Let's address the root cause, which is lack of nitric oxide, focal ischemia, insulin resistance in the brain. We give nitric oxide back, we restore blood flow, we restore insulin resistance, and the brain functions. It's very simple.